guys, welcome back to Team 1D. And in this video, I'm going to be going over the top 10 tips I have to lower blood sugar based on my experiences living with type 1 diabetes. So starting, I have to kind of talk about understanding why carbs actually raise blood sugar. And so what carbohydrates do is that they break down into glucose in your body. Your body pretty much breaks them down into glucose, which then directly goes into your blood sugar and raises it. For people with type 1 diabetes specifically, you need the insulin to move that glucose into cells, but you don't have it. For type 2 diabetes, it's just less efficient. So pretty much you need insulin or you need medication in order to move that blood sugar out of your blood and into your cells and into other parts of the body for them to be actually used. And so too many fast-acting carbs or just carbs in general without insulin would cause you to have a huge spike in blood sugar, as they would just stay in your blood sugar and not go to your cells. And so know your carbs is something that you should do. You should know the difference between refined carbs, which are like white bread, soda, cereal, and then complex carbs, which is like beans and whole grains, which also digest slower compared to refined carbs, which immediately hit the blood sugar and go into your blood sugar really quickly and raise your blood sugar really quickly. So my first tip would be using a lower carb approach. Me specifically, I sometimes do this, but not. I know it's like hard to not eat as many carbs. And this is not like removing carbs completely, but definitely eating less carbs will overall most likely improve your blood sugar, because if you eat less carbs, it just makes sense. There's less of a chance that you overshoot or the amount of carbs you eat, the amount of insulin, because you'll be taking less insulin in general if you take less carbs, right? No matter what, even if your carb ratios are low, you'll be taking less insulin, and with less insulin comes less percent error and less chance that you overshoot the amount of insulin you put or you undershoot the amount of insulin you put. So just cause there to be less variability in your blood sugar in general due to the amount of carbs you eat being less than what it would be with a high carb diet. So trying like moderate carb meals, 20 to 50 or like less, is something that I would recommend, especially paired with protein and fat. Moving on to the next tip I'll have is to manage meal timing like well and avoid insulin overlapping. So for example, spacing meals and not really eating too many snacks. And if you do eat snacks, which is fine, don't like eat like multiple snacks at once. Don't like eat like a snack and then like 15 minutes later another snack and 15 minutes later another snack. Especially those snacks have carbs. This will cause insulin overlap and could lower or increase your blood sugar. And so having wait periods between meals with few snacks will definitely help you to have your blood sugar in check and to have less variability in your blood sugar compared to someone who snacks right after dosing insulin. Another tip I have is to add fiber to your meals. So for example, like let's say I'm eating something with a lot of carbs, right? Like rice, white rice. Pair that with high fiber foods, for example, like chia seeds, veggies like broccoli, lentils or berries, because fiber is really like hard to break down, and it takes a long time to break down in your digestive system. So it's like slows down your digestive system. This will cause a blunt in the blood glucose spike that you will experience, and also just improve your gut health in general. So it's just good to have, and it also cause your blood sugar spike in a much slower manner, which would help you, because if it's slower, then there's a lower chance it would go up to a really high amount, and you'll have a better time in range. Also, choosing low glycemic index foods. For example, trying to avoid foods like above 60 glycemic index or 70 glycemic index, especially, for example, like potatoes, white rice, white bread, etc., because these foods will obviously increase your blood sugar in a much faster rate. And glycemic index is pretty much how fast a food gets digested and goes into your blood sugar. So avoiding these high glycemic index foods, which are easy, you can just search them up and it'll come up. So whatever you're eating a food, you can just search up what's the glycemic index of white rice, and it'll come up and it'll be like probably 55, 65 range. And then based on high glycemic index foods, you can try to avoid them more compared to low glycemic index foods, which you can try to eat more often, because they'll be better for your blood sugar compared to higher glycemic index foods. So yeah, just overall just trying to avoid high glycemic index foods and eating more low glycemic index foods is a tip I have. Another tip would be to eat in the right order. There's a specific order that I'd recommend for eating based on my own experience. This would be to eat the fibers in your meal first and your fats and proteins, and then eat the carbs last. So for example, if I have a meal with fiber, protein, fat, and carbs, I would eat the fiber first, then the protein and fat, and then the carbs last. If I don't have one of the one of them. Like if I don't have fat, I would just eat the fiber first, then the protein, then the carbs. And if I don't have like the protein, I would just eat the fiber, the fat, and the carbs. So you can mix and match, but I recommend just eating the carbs last in the meal and eating everything else like the protein or the fats first. And this will just help you like slow your digestion because proteins, fats, and fiber takes slower to digest compared to carbs. And so having these first in your bloodstream, go into your digestive system will kind of slow it down and will just cause you to have a much slower spike in your blood sugar compared to just directly eating carbs and then eating the other things, which would have a much faster, more direct spike into your blood sugar. Another tip I have would be to bolus 15 minutes or 20 minutes before eating, especially if you're eating something that's like high carbs, if you know that's going to spike your blood sugar, if something that's like a bit higher glycemic index and something that you know that has spiked your blood sugar before, I would recommend to time the insulin perfectly, especially if you have a slower, like the regular insulin and you don't use Leomgit versus Fiasp. I would recommend waiting 20 to 30 minutes, and if you have like the faster ones, 10 to 15 minutes before actually eating. And I'd recommend bolusing like at these times because that would cause the insulin to actually to overlap with these foods and for you to actually be able to eat them without having a major blood sugar spike. Because for example, if you eat something like cereal, it's going to almost immediately go to your bloodstream, right? So having like your bolusing 15 to 20 minutes earlier would cause the overlap to actually happen because insulin takes longer to go to your bloodstream than like cereal does, for example. So if you bolus 15 to 20 minutes early, it'll overlap, the insulin will overlap with the cereal, and it would definitely negate the blood sugar spike, and it won't cause like a roller coaster of up and downs from eating the cereal, a spike, and then boom, crashing down when the insulin hits. So this will help you not only like prevent those highs from those glucose spikes, but also those like steep drops from like not being able to time the insulin correctly. So yeah, try to time the insulin correctly, preferably usually by eating 15-20 minutes early. But also if you're eating something with high fat, like for example, like fries, a greasy burger, then you could do a prolonged bolus, which kind of does it later on after you finish eating, or like an extended one, which is a thing on my pump, Omnipod 5. You're going to do an extended bolus, which gives you insulin over a period of time and kind of overlaps with something with foods that have more fat, like French fries, for example. Another thing is to not eat naked carbs. I kind of touched over this already, but don't eat like high sugary fruits like bananas or like crackers or like anything in general like rice. Don't eat that like by itself or like pasta. Try to pair them up with protein, fat, or fiber, or like all three of them or multiple of them, because this will greatly reduce the digestion and greatly reduce the amount of time it takes for this food to actually enter your bloodstream and increase your blood sugar. And so pairing it up with something that takes a long time to digest would increase digestive time of the entire food and will definitely mitigate the blood sugar spike. Another tip is to use resistant starch. Resistant starch is pretty much when you cook and then cool a starch, like rice or potatoes. For example, you cook the starch, so for example, rice or potatoes, then you like freeze it, let it cool, and you reheat it like hours later. This pretty much makes it into a resistant starch, which makes your body digest it slower. And yeah, it might negate like the taste a little bit, might make it taste a little bit more bland. However, I would say if you don't really mind that much, which I don't think it matters too much, especially for like potatoes, I would highly recommend this. It makes it digest much slower and it lowers the glycemic index by like 15 to 20 points. So if you really want to eat like potatoes, rice, this is the best method to do it in my opinion, and I would just reheat the food because it would make it like it would definitely lower the blood sugar spike that occurs after meals. Another tip I have would be to move and to walk around or run or do some exercise after meals. This is important because muscles help clear glucose. This is a pathway of helping like your insulin go to your blood cells and actually taking away glucose from your bloodstream without extra insulin. So yeah, even like light movement after exercise, like a walk or something light, will definitely help you lower your blood sugar and like mitigate the impact. This is a tip for like both type 1 and type 2 diabetes. It'll definitely help both of them. And just everyone should do this after meals. Even if you don't have type diabetes at all, just moving after meals is definitely helping for digestion and helping for mitigating those blood sugar spikes. Next, the last tip I would have is to avoid late night snacks or heavy meals. This is because the insulin sensitivity drops at late nights. And so having like a snack or a heavy meal at night could cause you to go low during the night, and it would definitely be harder and like more annoying to deal with a low like late into the night when your blood sugar is like low and you have to wake up from it and get out of your sleep and do everything. So it's much better. It's much easier just to, in my opinion, avoid eating, especially late in the night, so you don't have to deal with these like major blood sugar drops like 2 to 3 hours into the night. And so yeah, I would stop eating like maybe 1 or 2 hours before sleeping, just so you can mitigate these impacts. So yeah, this is like 10 tips that I learned when living with type 1 diabetes, and I hope they help you. If you do, leave a like, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment if you want me to go over anything else.